Welcome to homestead gardening in the Texas Gulf Coast. In this episode, I'm going to show you how I've taken all of these large live oak logs and turned them into inoculated shiitake mushroom logs. Now it takes about 12 months to inoculate these live oak logs and turn them into fully fruiting shiitake mushroom logs. Shiitake mushrooms also fruit at a very specific time of year. And in Houston, that's going to be our winter. Our winter season is so short, it's very difficult to get a lot of crops from the shiitake mushrooms, but you can probably start getting crops as early as November and probably into February or March. These are going to bloom roughly once a month with a really good crop, and you can either rely on natural rainfall, but if you don't have a rainy season during the peak time of production, you can actually soak these mushroom logs in order to force a bloom. You just don't want to do that more than about once a month. A healthier, larger limb like this is going to be cut up into pieces that are movable, just like you see with this size. And we're actually going to create a mushroom farm on the homestead by boring holes into this fresh wood and then sealing any cut areas with wax. We pruned our live oak tree in the cooler season when the tree was still dormant. We pruned to remove limbs that didn't look healthy and to get more light into the interior of the tree canopy. But we also plan to use the healthy limbs from this chore to create inoculated logs with shiitake mushroom plugs. We waited until our mushroom plugs arrived in the mail before we did this tree pruning chore. You want to start with fresh logs whenever you inoculate. To inoculate your logs, you will need inoculated mushroom plugs. Make sure you choose the right mushrooms for the wood you have available and refrigerate the plugs until you're ready to use them. You'll also need wax, something to melt the wax in, like a miniature crock pot or candle warmer, and something to apply the wax, like these disposable daubers. Clear safety glasses and leather gloves are a great choice for this project, and you're going to want to have a mallet on hand to make sure those plugs have a snug fit in the log. Of course, you'll need a drill and a drill bit suited for the size of your mushroom plugs. The manufacturer of your mushroom plugs will recommend a size. Start by drilling your freshly cut log. The recommended spacing for mushroom plugs is 4 inches apart in staggered rows of 2 inches apart. This creates a triangular spacing for your plugs and inoculation throughout the entire log with your preferred mushroom choice. Your hole depth should be 1 inch deep, and it's helpful to mark this on your drill bit. Next, add your plug and tap the plug firmly with your mallet until the top of the plug is flush with the outside of your log. If your drilled hole is too shallow, the mallet will crush the top of your mushroom plug. Finally, heat up your sealing wax and use your disposable daubers to apply a coating of wax to the tops of each installed mushroom plug. The purpose of this wax is to keep the mushroom spores isolated to that wood and the fresh exposed wood isolated away from other fungal spores found in nature. Any scrape marks or cut ends are also covered in wax for this reason. This failed attempt at drying a gourd outside in Houston just shows you the capabilities of humidity and fungal infections on a crop. This is why I chose to wax the ends of my mushroom logs. In some climates, you may not need to do this, but in Houston, because our fungus can get out of control, you want to make sure that your inoculation for your log is with your preferred mushroom plugs, not with whatever your climate decides to throw at it. There are many ways to set up mushroom logs. One mistake I made with my choice is that some of my logs aren't making contact with the ground or each other, which I did on purpose to keep critters from living around my logs. I've recently learned it's better to let the logs make contact with each other and the ground to keep them from drying out and allow for more successful inoculation and fruiting. Now this is the 6-month mark, and you can see on this log, which is very, very heavy, we have really obvious decomposition around each plug. And then we have obvious signs that the wax is being removed from the end caps of a lot of these logs just from natural rainfall alone. Some people actually water their mushroom logs, and that's okay too. If you live in a dry climate, maybe that's a really good idea for you. This decomposition though is telling me that we're having really good inoculation of the logs at the 6-month mark, and we just have 6 months left before we find out if everything worked the way it should.